I never want to go back there. Even just thinking about the name Pine Barrens sends a shiver down my spine, and a cold sweat breaks out like I've just woken up from the worst nightmare imaginable. But I know I have to tell this story, maybe to warn others, maybe to finally unburden myself from the horrific weight I've carried for so many years. Back then, I was young and foolish, drawn to exploring wild, mysterious places. I'd heard the stories about the Jersey Devil since I was a kid, those creepy whispers from the adults around the fireplace, the fearful looks whenever that vast forest in southern New Jersey was mentioned. I always thought they were just tall tales, scary stories to keep children from wandering into dangerous areas. I was wrong, terribly wrong. I remember it was a sweltering summer weekend. The sky was a clear, cloudless blue, but a strange sense of unease clung to me. Friends suggested a camping trip in Wharton State Forest, a massive part of the Pine Barrens. I hesitated, but curiosity and a sense of adventure won out over that vague feeling of dread in my gut. We packed tents, food, water, and of course, plenty of flashlights to deal with the dense darkness of the woods. On the way, we even joked about the Jersey Devil, trying to act brave and scoffing at those ridiculous stories. But deep down, I couldn't shake this unsettling feeling. My best friend Mark even quipped that if we saw it, we'd take a selfie with it. I laughed then, but a small voice in the back of my mind whispered a chilling warning. As we ventured deeper into the woods, the air began to change. The initial oppressive heat gave way to a damp, cold chill, and the towering pine trees blocked out almost all the sunlight, creating a shadowy, sinister space. The cheerful chirping of birds faded into an unnerving silence, broken only by the whistle of the wind through the dry branches. We found a relatively flat clearing near a small stream and started setting up camp. The longer we stayed in those woods, the more I felt that something was wrong. A sensation of being watched, an unseen, ominous presence lurking somewhere between the trees. I tried to shake off those weird thoughts, telling myself I was just being paranoid. But I couldn't deny the strange feeling that the shadows were observing us, and the wind rustling through the dry branches sounded like creepy whispers. When night fell, the darkness in the Pine Barrens became thicker and more terrifying than anywhere I had ever experienced. The crackling campfire was the only source of light and sound, struggling to push back the sinister silence that enveloped us. We sat huddled around the flames, telling ghost stories to pass the time, trying to avoid mentioning the Jersey Devil, the name we were all thinking. Mark kept trying to crack jokes, but even his voice had a nervous edge. Suddenly, a bizarre sound echoed from the distance. A high-pitched, chilling cry, unlike any animal I had ever heard. It reverberated through the still night air, piercing right to my bones, planting a primal fear in our hearts. Everyone went silent, listening in horror. The cry repeated, each time closer, each time more terrifying. I glanced at Mark. The joking expression was gone, replaced by sheer terror. At that moment, it felt like a cold hand was squeezing my heart. Fear spread quickly through our group. A few people started trembling, others turned pale. We frantically grabbed our flashlights, trying to shine them in the direction of the sound, but all we saw were the dark, swaying silhouettes of trees. Then it appeared. A colossal black shape swooped down from above, wings as wide as a demon's, tearing through the night. Its form was grotesque, a horrifying blend of different creatures. The head was like a horse's, but elongated with sharp, jutting horns. Its eyes glowed a fiery red, staring at us with a sinister hatred. Its body was gaunt but muscular, and its legs ended in sharp, black hooves that touched the ground lightly, but with a palpable threat. A blood-curdling shriek ripped through the air. It lunged towards us as fast as a whirlwind. Screams erupted and everyone scattered into the darkness. I remember tripping, feeling a sharp pain in my leg, but the fear was greater than any pain. I struggled to get up and follow the others, but I was lost in the sinister blackness of the Pine Barrens. I ran blindly, not knowing where I was going, just trying to escape that terrifying black shape that was chasing us. The ominous flapping of wings still echoed somewhere behind me, punctuated by the occasional chilling growl that made my heart pound in my chest. I was lost and alone in the endless darkness of the woods. The sound of my own feet crunching on dry leaves seemed deafening in the sinister silence. I kept turning my head, terrified I would see those glowing red eyes and sharp teeth. Suddenly, a heart-wrenching scream tore through the night behind us. It was Sarah. We froze, turning back. In the flickering light of the dying campfire, we saw the massive black shape dive down towards her. Sarah, no. Our voices screamed out in unison, Mark's and mine. We stood paralyzed for a split second, horrified by the scene unfolding before us. The Jersey Devil seized Sarah, its sharp claws tearing through the air. A scream of utter agony pierced the night, then abruptly stopped, leaving only a sickening ripping sound. We have to go, now. Mark grabbed my arm, his voice trembling. We spun around and fled, but the horrifying image we had just witnessed was burned into my mind. The ominous flapping of wings grew closer, and I caught a glimpse of the massive black shape gliding through the trees. After us. We ran for our lives through the dense trees, branches whipping at our faces, tripping constantly. Suddenly, Mark stumbled over a large root jutting out of the ground and fell hard. Barf. Mark's cry of pain. I stopped, trying to pull Mark to his feet. Are you okay? My ankle, it's twisted. It hurts so bad. You go. Save yourself, Mark said, his eyes wide with terror as he stared into the encroaching darkness. No, I'm not leaving you, I insisted, trying to lift him. But before I could get Mark up, the colossal black shape reappeared, swooping down with a sinister growl, its fiery red eyes flashing in the darkness. Go, now, Mark screamed, shoving me away. In that horrific instant, the Jersey Devil lunged at Mark. I heard his agonizing scream, the sickening tearing of flesh, and a sinister growl echoing right beside him. I didn't dare look back. Pure, unadulterated fear took over, and I knew I had to run, or I would be next. I ran blindly, my fear now multiplied tenfold. I had just witnessed the horrific fate of Sarah and Mark. Their screams still echoed in my ears, but now, mixed with an unnerving, sinister silence. I was lost and alone in the endless darkness of the woods, now burdened not only by fear for myself, but also by the agonizing uncertainty of my friend's fate. The sound of my own feet crunching on dry leaves sounded like the sinister call of death. I have to survive. I have to tell everyone what happened here. The ominous signs around me now held a more terrifying meaning. The trees snapped in unnatural ways, the deep claw marks on the bark. It wasn't just the work of an animal, but chilling evidence of the Jersey Devil's brutal and deadly power. I even caught a whiff of a sickeningly foul odor, a smell I would never forget. I don't clearly remember how I found my way out of the woods. I just remember running until I saw the faint lights of houses on the edge of the forest. The other friends who had managed to escape were frantic with worry when I stumbled back, my face ashen, my eyes wide with terror, and my clothes ripped to shreds. Mark? Sarah? Where are they? A friend's voice filled with dread. I couldn't speak, tears streaming down my face. Finally, between choked sobs, I recounted what had happened. The demon with black wings, Sarah's heart-wrenching scream, and the horrifying moment Mark was attacked. You recount the story, your voice trembling and filled with anguish, tears streaming down your face. Everyone was stunned and terrified. The next morning, as the first light of dawn broke, a group of villagers gathered, armed with makeshift weapons, flashlights, and even some clutching crosses, determined to venture into the Pine Barrens to search for Sarah and Mark. I went with them, my heart filled with a sliver of desperate hope and the overwhelming dread that what I had witnessed would be confirmed. The search unfolded in a tense and sinister atmosphere. Even in daylight, the woods hadn't lost their menacing aura, the tall trees casting long, eerie shadows. We found signs of a struggle, dark stains of dried blood on the leaves, torn pieces of clothing snagged on low branches, all cold, hard evidence of the horrific attack from the night before. Then, finally, a piercing cry echoed from the distance. We rushed towards it. We found them at the base of an ancient oak tree, its trunk gnarled and covered in moss, not far from where the attack had occurred. Sarah and Mark lay motionless in the sinister shade. Their clothes were ripped to ribbons as if torn by claws, their bodies covered in deep, raw gashes and horrifying bruises, their skin scratched and bleeding. They were badly injured, their breathing shallow and ragged, but miraculously, they were alive. However, more terrifying than their physical wounds were their eyes. Their eyes were wide open, but vacant, soulless, as if all light and life had been drained from them. When we called their names, shook them gently, they showed no reaction. They stared at us like strangers, without a flicker of recognition, their gaze dull and emotionless, sending a chill down our spines. We carefully carried Sarah and Mark back to the village on makeshift stretchers, our hearts heavy with worry. The doctors did everything they could to treat their physical wounds, stitching the deep gashes, bandaging the open cuts. Slowly, their external injuries began to heal, and their fevers subsided. But their minds remained lost. Sarah and Mark had completely lost their memories of that horrific night, and it seemed even their memories from before were hazy and fragmented. They became listless, disoriented, unable to communicate coherently, only uttering meaningless sounds like newborns, their eyes constantly wide with a blank, unfocused fear. The doctors diagnosed them with extreme psychological trauma, causing severe damage to their brains, a catatonic state brought on by the shock. But in their empty eyes, in the occasional flicker of primal terror, I still saw the lingering shadow of the unspeakable horror they had witnessed in the darkness of the Pine Barrens. Sarah and Mark's miraculous survival didn't bring relief. It only sowed more terror and haunting questions. What truly happened to them that night? Why didn't the Jersey Devil kill them, but instead left them alive in this state of amnesia and devastation? Were their minds still trapped by the horror they had witnessed, locked in an eternal nightmare? These questions continue to haunt me. I know they faced something far more terrifying than death. They were robbed not only of their memories, but of their very selves, becoming empty shells carrying an invisible and eternal fear. I often visit them, trying to spark even a glimmer of recognition, but their eyes remain distant and vacant. I'm telling you this story not for your amusement. I'm telling it as a warning. The Pine Barrens isn't just a wild forest. It's a place harboring dark secrets, a place where nightmares don't just stay in your dreams, they become real. And sometimes, death isn't the worst thing that can happen. Believe me, it's not just a story, it's real. Stay away from the Pine Barrens. Listen to the whispers of the wind, pay attention to the strange tracks on the ground, and pray that you never have to face the terrifying horror that lurks in the darkness. Because once you encounter it, you might not die, but you will never be the same. You might become a sinister and eternal reminder of what's waiting in the shadows. A victim stripped of your memories and your very being, living a life with no recollection, no longer yourself. Perhaps somewhere in the Pine Barrens, Sarah and Mark still wander aimlessly, their empty eyes staring into nothingness, carrying scars not just on their skin, deep within their minds. They are living, sinister proof of the Jersey Devil's existence and the unspeakable horrors it inflicts.